Right, so what do I mean by this title? What I mean is, I used to edit like this, and I'd really like force a style into a photo that didn't need it. Like I'd just throw loads of shadows, loads of blacks, whack the contrast up, whack the saturation up, and be like, yeah, sick, fucking sick edit. But it just looks like amateur in a way, like it just looks like too much, and it's like, what the fuck, it just takes away from the actual picture. So the more I actually started to edit photos, the more I started to slip into this style that I've actually saved as one of my presets, which is called dull cars, and it's in the name. It's dull, sort of moody photo that goes away from everything that I used to do. So I don't saturate it, I desaturate it, I pull all the colors out, I lift the blacks, I lift the shadows, I sort of play on the fact that it's like a rainy, miserable day, and turn that into the photo, and it just gives this sort of mature look, I think, to the photo. It looks quite cool. So let me show you how I do it. So here we've got the thumbnail picture, just so it makes sense. And we're gonna go, I could do this from scratch, but I think it's more beneficial to show you the actual final product that I use, just because I could fuck it up if I try do it straight from scratch. So I'm gonna use my preset and whack it on. There's dull cars. So if you look at the before and after, it's subtle, but it's nothing too crazy. So you've got the original here. All I've done is lift the colors up a little bit and the sort of darkness, richness of the photo, and then I've just pulled it back with a fade over the whole image. It's quite simple, really. So let's talk through what I've done. So over here, we've lifted the exposure slightly. We've pulled the contrast out, because if you see, that's the contrast. It adds that sort of black sort of saturation to it. So we pull that saturation back out. We've brought the highlights down just because it takes the reflections off of the picture, and if I bring this back up, it already makes the photo look a bit more lively. So I like to bring that down to add to the miserable effect. Bring the shadows up just so we can see what we're working with, because obviously that also adds too much saturation sometimes. So we bring that up, and then whites, we bring that down slightly, because obviously if it's up, it's quite bright. So I bring the whites down to about 11. Blacks are down slightly here, so I have crossed the blacks slightly, but I'll show you now in the tone curve. I've also boosted the saturation here, but you'll see why, because I boost it here and then I pull the saturation back out later in the individual colors. So I boost that there. And then for the tone curve, I've just done a nice little S curve with multiple points in it going through each bit. And the main point is this one here. So if I bring this back down here, it's subtle, but when I bring this up, it adds that nice fade over the whole sort of image. You can slightly see it. It just glazes over everything, but you have to be careful. You see that bottom bit there? That's what you don't want. So you pull that back a little bit to about there. You've got a nice fade to the image. And then for the colors, I just kind of play around. I don't do the same curve. I sort of play around just so then I can depict where those colors are going to be. Like you see these reds, I can make them pop a little bit more, or I can bring them a little bit more down. So I just do that, and then I copy that through every single one of those channels, and I'll leave that for the tone curve. And then now you can see from the saturation, you see I've pulled most of them down, but I boosted them earlier. And then it leaves you this weird in-between, I don't know what you'd call it. It's like an in-between. It's kind of saturated, but then it's kind of not. So that's what I do there. I pull all this down, reds are down. I sort of, hold on, my fucking dog wants to get out again. Every time I film. Make up your mind. All right, where were we? Every time I film, he literally lays in here, gets comfy, and then as soon as I start filming, he's like, I want to leave now. So where were we? We were at, is that straight? Yeah. We were at the colors. Yeah, so I've desaturated all the colors, but I've saturated it earlier, so it leaves you with this in between, really nice richness to the texture of the paint. And I like to go the most with the most prominent colors. So the orange is quite prominent, so I'd even pull that down even more and desaturate that even more. The blues, I don't really need to do much to it because it's already quite faint anyway on the car. The reds, I can bring that down even a little bit more as well. And I just like to pull the main saturation out of the most prominent color. And then the hue, I bring that down to the darker side. So obviously this red, I could go this way, makes it more yellowy, which I actually kind of like, but I like to do it this way so it's a little bit more richer because it goes to that darker point of the color. So because you've pulled the saturation out, I like to add a bit of hue, I don't even know what that word means, to the color to then sort of bring a little bit of life back to it because I've pulled so much from it. So that's what I do with that. I'll let you see that. Luminance, I've not really done anything with that, but yeah, saturation out, hue down to the darker side. Then we move on to the midtones, shadows, and highlights in the little color wheels. And I just do a slight little bit of a yellow tint to the image so that you can see here. Gives it that nice little yellow tint, pulls a little bit more color out, so I just go about there. Shadows, I like to keep it between the green / blue just because it adds that coldness to the image, so about there, where it was. I'm ruining it, bosh. And then highlights ever so slightly, a little bit of red. Just, I think it works well with the blue and the yellow. And then lastly, it's just the color, what is this? Color calibration, forgot about that. I haven't really done much here. I've just, again, pulled the saturation down of each one, and then I've just slightly put it towards what color I like more out of this image. So I could go a little bit more yellowy, so it looks a bit more miserable and wet, or I could go more dark. So I like to go a bit more yellowy with this one, so about there. And that's it really. So you've got this section, you've got this section, this and this, tone curve, 1, 2, 3, and then these are the basic adjustments, saturation up, clarity tiny bit, copy this with here, and that will give you that nice, let's go to the before and after, raised up, fade, sort of dull look to your photo. And if you don't want to do all of that and copy all of that each time, which I don't like to do, I like to use presets because it helps me with my workflow. I don't have to sit here and edit a same style. I just lock it in once and then use it over and over again. You can get this in my preset pack. It's turned into an advert, but I might as well plug them because they're available. And it's just over here. So look, dull cars, bosh, whack it on, edits straight away. I do that on every single one of my photos. I've also got other ones like dark saturation, but that's more for like a sunny day, so it's not really working with this one. I've got a 80s one up here, which adds that sort of 80s grain to it. I've got a couple others, but I wouldn't use them in these locations, like sunset cars. I wouldn't use here because it's in the wrong conditions. But yeah, they're all available in the description along with dull cars, which is the one I use literally every single time. If you need more convincing, head over to my Instagram. All my photos on there at the minute are all edited with dull cars. It's the best fucking one. But that'll be that. So hopefully I've opened your mind to a new style of editing. Give it a try. It actually works quite well, and you'll be surprised at how much you don't actually have to do to a photo to make it look good. Sometimes you can do too much to a photo, and actually taking a step back and pulling some stuff from it can make your photos look a lot better. So give that a try. If you use my presets, tag me in them so I can see. And that'll be that. I'll see you later.